Hello, and as we've just finished the bikes, we've finished the GS, we've finished the Bros. In fact, there's some riding videos coming up on the GS soon, which I'm quite looking forward to. So what I'm going to do now is something slightly different. I've just bought two things which I've never owned before, which hopefully are going to help me in the restoration field. One is an ultrasonic cleaner. You can guess what I'm going to use that for. And the other one is a plating kit. So what I'm going to do, I've got a couple of sets of carbs, and I'm going to strip them down, clean them up in an ultrasonic cleaner, and then plate all the little tiny little bits, the springs, the little brackets, bits and pieces, to try and make, the plan is to try and make the carburetors that I'm going to do eventually, when they're finished, look like new, or as near to new as I can get them to look. I want to be really fastidious. I know I'm a shit worker, and some of the stuff that I produce is crap, but I'm going to try and sort of like spend a bit of time making these carburetors that I'm about to do look the absolute nuts, and hopefully then when they're finished, they're a beautiful set of carbs which somebody can put on their bike, and they're like a new set of carbs. Anyway, we'll see how we get on, because you know, anything can happen in the next half hour, can't it? Yeah, don't we? Right, so what we're going to do, set of carburetors off of, with these particular carburetors are off of 650 Bros, but they're the same carbs that are on the Africa Twin, or the same setup that's on the Africa Twin, on the NTV 650 and the DeVille. So this is an acceptable video if you've got one of those bikes, to see how you restore the carburetors. Well, the first thing, most important thing obviously, is stripping down. NTV 650, DeVille, Africa Twin, Honda Bros. These carburetors are identical in design on all of those bikes. So obviously each individual bike has its own individual set of jets, bell mouths, etc. So it doesn't say that a set from an Africa Twin would fit a 400cc Bros, because it wouldn't. But essentially they are the same carbs. So what we're going to do here, we're going to just look at how you strip these down. So first things first, take these 4 screws out, remove this cap. Now early on in the rebuild, I want to take these carburetors apart. So I've taken the 2 screws out, one there, and then that essentially, these carbs are 2 separate units, but you have to look at where the throttle linkage keeps them together. So that throttle linkage has got to be readjusted when it goes back together. But once they're separate carbs, then you can dismantle each carb separately and then make it into a really nice job. So how do we get that apart? Well, that comes apart there. They are essentially 2 separate carbs, except for that bit there where that there is driven by one throttle, which drives that one there, which is the other throttle. So we've got to that one there is driven by one throttle, which then drives that one, adjustable via these springs and this adjusting nut here. So you've got to be really careful that you don't lose the springs. That screw comes out, look, then that just leaves the spring underneath the lever. Do not lose the spring. And then comes apart. As you can see, there's that arm nail up, which operates the throttle on this carb. And that's driven by that arm there, which is driven from the throttle on this carb, look. So you've got to be very careful with these, because obviously, you know, you can easily break things or lose springs. But now you've got two separate carbs, so you can attack each carb as a separate entity, and because they're separate you can clean all this intimately, and it's superb, which is what carburetor restoration is all about. So deal with one carb and one carb alone. Keep all of the bits to that particular carb in one place. Once float bowl's off, look at how dry and contaminated these are. These are going to want a really good clean. You've got to take every single one of these out, and after we've cleaned it in an ultrasonic cleaner, we're then going to blow everything through to make sure that air goes through the holes that it should do. That's one of the good things about carburetor restoration. It's interesting. So you put the carburetor into some cleaner and you clean it. Clean it as best you can. After an hour of cleaning with a toothbrush, a blade and the usual sort of perseverance, blasting it off with the high pressure hose, drying it as best you can, blowing it out with an air line to get all the jets and whatever clear, we end up with it looking like that. So just have a look at what it did look like. That's the carburetor that's so far untouched, that was next to it. Untouched, cleaned. This looks quite nice, doesn't it? But I'm going to take this particular project one stage further, because I've bought an ultrasonic cleaner. So I'm now going to immerse this carburetor in the ultrasonic cleaner just to see how much dirt and crap comes out, because this carb has been cleaned really nicely, but ultrasonic cleaner could get rid of even more. Let's find out. So here is the contents of one carburetor. The body, which has been cleaned, and everything else which I've just laid out prior to inspection. You can see every single little bit's been taken off so that we can inspect it. Now a lot of this stuff will be replaced with the kit. So I'm going to get a rebuild kit for each carburettor. I mean, things like the jets, the needle valve, the little screws that hold the float bowl on, and I think in some kits you even get a float. But other bits, like that little bit there, that bit's replaced in the jet, the kit as well. But other bits, like the diaphragm, will need looking at to find out whether that needs replacing also. Normally, if you rebuild a carburettor, unless the diaphragm's absolutely immaculate, it makes sense to replace the diaphragm as well, because you want the carbs to work properly when they're finished. We looked at the diaphragm on this particular carb, and you just look around to make sure there's no splits. If you see any split of any type, oh, there's one. You can see that. That means this diaphragm is scrap. So if one diaphragm is scrap and you're doing a pair of carbs, buy 2 diaphragms, because that way then the carbs will work properly when they're finished. These bits and pieces are going to be cleaned up. That's going in the ultrasonic cleaner. The jets are going to be replaced in the kit. I'm going to put a new diaphragm on it, and all the other bits and pieces I'm going to plate. I've got a plating kit coming, and I'm going to see if I can plate them bright zinc or even yellow passivate, but we'll have a look when that arrives, because when this is finished I want this carburettor to be as good as new.